In this video, I'm going to show you how to paint vegetables. I'm going to use brush size 21. I've also made a preliminary drawing showing axes and ellipses. Before you start sketching, try to analyze general shapes of the objects of your still life.
The main shape of tomato is a ball, and how would we construct a ball? We have to find an axe and draw ellipses, so in such a way that when we erase those lines, then we get a perfect shape. Please pay attention how I erase. When you erase something, some pencil drawing from the paper, from particular watercolor paper, try to hold your rubber this way, slightly sidewise, because this way it damages less the paper. So when I get rid of those supportive lines, then I get a perfect shape. So no mistakes, no curvy or misshaped objects. So I get a perfectly built object. And also a cucumber. I'm going to erase all those supportive lines. And you can see now a perfect shape of a cucumber and a radish as well. So I'm preparing it for painting now. Always remember that with watercolor painting, the paper itself, the quality of the paper is very important. So please try to keep it intact. I'm going to use cadmium red and crimson red. You can see that a tomato is not shiny, it's quite dull, but nevertheless it has some reflection of the light. So because I'm not using the masking tape, I'm going to leave this area unpainted. So it's roughly this area. So at the moment I'm paint around. When you paint any vegetable or any object, also try to see more colors in one object. If it's red, try not to use only one color, one red color out of your set of colors. Try to find interesting color combinations with it within any ordinary object, like tomato, for example. So I'm trying to use a little bit more crimson and ultramarine blue in order to communicate the shadow of this tomato. Because the light is quite warm, and according to the classical rules of painting, if the light is warm, then the shadow will be cooler, will contain cooler colors. So wherever you can see the light here, I'm trying to apply warmer colors, warmer red, and for the shadowed area, cooler reds. Cooler red, you can always add a little bit of blue. You can add a little bit of ultramarine blue or any other blue that you have in your color set. The top I'm going to finish with darker red, a little bit darker red, red with ultramarine, cadmium red, and because there is more shadow here on top of this. Also, if you're in doubt about shadow, you can always squint your eyes, then you can see better. Then you can see better the relationship between the light and the shadow of an object. Also, let it dry. Very often you don't have to try and paint an object straight away. Take your time and let it dry a bit, then come back to it. Try to avoid muddy colors. When you mix more than 3 colors, you come to gray. If you mix any 3 colors, you will come to a gray color eventually, which will create a very muddy effect on your painting and on the objects that you paint. So try to avoid it. Now for the cucumber, I can see that there would be some of the reflection of the red tomato, but a slight, really slight gentle hint of it. The side of it is quite deep, cool green color, so I'm going to use cool green and green colors with some blue. And also, when you squint your eyes, you will see that tonality-wise, the cucumber is quite deep and dark color, much darker than tomatoes. So you have to remember about it and try to communicate it on the paper in your painting. A bit warmer from this side where the light is coming from, and a bit cooler towards the end and towards the side of it. There will be also a reflection, slightly reflections from the white surface. Very light. I won't call it white, but it's quite light surface. This part inside of cucumber is quite light. It's warm, to me it's warm, light, very light, warm green color. A little bit of reddish, because at the moment I want the cucumber to dry and the tomato, and moving towards reddish. I'm going to use crimson red, a little bit of violet and crimson red. And also the lighter part, the part which is turned more towards the light, will be warmer than the part which is turned away from the light. So I'm going to add a little bit more of, because I have this knowledge, and you'll have this knowledge of relationship between light and shadow. If the light is warm, shadow would be cool, and vice versa. You have to apply it. Regardless of what you think it's there, you can see there, you still have to apply it following those rules. You can see that the stem of tomato is quite deep green, dark and deep green, which is also different from the cucumber's green. What I can do in this case is to dry the brush a little bit and mop it up a little bit of green here. You also have to think about the background is yet another green, but it's different green. It's milky green, I would have described it. So it's a bit dull milky green. I might wet the paper a little bit in order to create wet and wet effect, because it's quite blurred background. A little bit deeper tone, but not deeper than the cucumber itself or this tomato stem. And because it's away from us, it will automatically be cooler. It can never be warm because it's background. Background is always away from us, so it's more in the shadow, so it will always be cooler. Then towards the end, we'll paint the shadows of the objects. It's a little bit warmer towards the foreground, warmer green, but because it's not really green, the foreground, it's more white beige, so it will have reflection of a little bit of red, a little bit of green, of course, because of the cucumber and the background. Reddish will also have its own reflection on the white foreground, something like this. So I can come back to the tomato now and create slightly a little bit deeper color. Use a deeper red. This part and this one as well, and a bit. This tomato is not even. It's quite sculptured. And also I have to kill this lighter part because tomato is dull and we can never leave it white. We should never leave it white. But it's warm red. It will be warm red, light. So by making the surrounding a little bit deeper red with deeper red, I do this. We underline the lighter area. I need to use cadmium deep red a little bit. A little bit deeper here. You can see it's slightly different red. And a bit of shadow. Mixing it with ultramarine blue. But I don't want to cover the whole area with this cool red because there are reflections, and I want to leave it as it is now, because now it creates more sort of three-dimensional effect for this tomato. I can also mop up the dry bit brush and mop up the color from this side, because there is a reflection here. Never be afraid when watercolor runs a bit. It's supposed to run, it's supposed to be a bit runny color, so it's natural for watercolor painting. So don't try to be too careful with watercolor. Let it run a bit. Try to be a bit spontaneous with this medium. Shadow actually a reflection, and the shadow will be a little bit much cooler red. At the same time quite blurred, so I'm quite pleased that the paper is still wet, and then it disappears. Let it disappear. Here as well. deeper. Let's do a little bit the background a little bit deeper green, because it dried and became lighter, so we want to keep it a bit darker, a little bit darker. Try not to leave too much white, because otherwise objects will look like cut out and applied to the paper. So you can highlight. I don't think it's dry yet. Stem for creating details, but I can do a little bit of more work on this radish, which is darker side. I want to use a little bit of crimson red here, this part, the brighter part of reddish, and finally finish it with little detail. And also a cucumber. We can go for some details in the middle. Again, don't go into much details, just suggest seeds, this part, seeds, just suggest. And also, as you know, around the cucumber there is a bit darker area. Just underneath it you can underline that there's a skin. And you can add a little bit of reddish, some hint, because this will be a reflection from tomato, but not much, of course, not obvious. It will be a bit darker, the tone, towards the lighter part. The shadow will be cold, quite cool shadow, which will underline the lighter part of tomato as well. Shadows, as you know, are changing during the day, so once you've chosen the direction of the shadow, stick to it, and the light, try to stick to it, don't change it. Don't follow it. Otherwise you'll have to change your composition all the time, shadow wise. Just make it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to apply a little bit of more of green color to the background, but not much. Not much, because I don't want it to clash with the main objects, but to divide it better line. Try, when you paint still life, in the background, never make the line which separates the background from the foreground obvious. Never make it obvious, just always make it blurred and sort of disappearing. Well, this is a quick sketch of these 3 objects. I can emphasize a little bit of stem on the tomato. Just some suggestions, direction of the stem, and I can draw a line here. It's virtually finished. Quick sketch is finished. When you underlie shadows, shadows are very important for any still life or for any object you paint, because they help to create this 3-dimensional effect of an object. Without shadows, an object would look quite cut out and artificially applied to this still life. Yes, we don't want this effect. So, here we are. Try a similar exercise at home, please. Put 2 or 3 objects, vegetables or 3 fruit, and try to follow the same advice while creating this quick sketch. Thank you for watching.